Chrissie Hynde sat alone in a quiet London cafe. She was sipping a strong cup of black coffee and flipping through an old music magazine. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on a picture of a band she once said she hated. Her lips curled into a small, ironic smile. "Funny how time changes everything," she said to herself. Back in the late 1970s and early 80s, Chrissie Hynde was one of the most outspoken voices in rock music. As the fierce and fearless frontwoman of the Pretenders, she didn't care about fame or money. She cared about one thing only: truth in music. She loved punk, raw vocals, and lyrics that told the truth, but there were some bands she just couldn't stand. To her, they were the opposite of real music. They were polished, commercial, and full of what she called plastic sound. Now, years later, Chrissie finally opened up about the 5 bands she once hated the most. And what surprised fans even more, she doesn't hate them anymore. In fact, some of them even made her cry. Let's go back and look at the list, because the names she drops will shock you. One of the first bands she mentioned was Journey. Yes, the band known for Don't Stop Believin'. "I couldn't stand them," Chrissie admitted. "I thought they were the opposite of everything I believed in. The hair, the ballads, the polished sound, it all felt too clean, too safe, too boring." For years, she would roll her eyes anytime Journey came on the radio, but something happened that changed everything. She was driving through California, tired and heartbroken after a tough breakup. It was raining. She turned on the radio and Don't Stop Believin' came on. At first she laughed, "Oh no, not this song again." But then something strange happened. She started singing along, and soon she wasn't laughing anymore, she was crying. "That song healed something in me," she said. "I finally understood why people loved it. It was hopeful, it gave people strength." Chrissie realized she had judged the band too harshly. That was just the beginning. Because the next band on her list, she didn't just dislike them, she mocked them on stage during her shows. And when you find out who it was, you'll understand why Chrissie Hynde was one of the boldest voices in rock. The band she mocked on stage. It was 1984, and the Pretenders were playing a massive show in Germany. Chrissie Hynde stopped in the middle of a song and looked out at the crowd. Then she said something into the mic that made the audience laugh. "We don't do songs about pouring sugar, do we?" It was a direct insult. She was making fun of Def Leppard, a band that had just exploded in America with flashy music videos and glam rock vibes. "I thought they were too shiny, too slick," Chrissie explained. "The big drums, the endless guitar solos, the outfits, I felt like they were playing a part, not making real music." She saw them as everything wrong with rock in the 80s. But many years later, Chrissie's view changed in the most unexpected way. In 2005, she met Rick Allen, Def Leppard's drummer, at a charity event in Manchester. Rick had lost his arm in a car accident but still played drums using a special kit. "He was the kindest, most humble person I'd ever met," Chrissie said. "He talked about healing, about music, about pain, and suddenly I realized these guys weren't fake, they were fighters." That night she watched Def Leppard perform from backstage. When they played Hysteria, she stood still, her arms crossed. But by the second verse she found herself swaying. By the chorus she was quietly mouthing the words. "I judged them without knowing their story," she later said. "But when you know someone's pain, their music hits differently." She never said sorry to the band directly, that's not her style, but if you watched her closely during that show you saw it, a nod, a quiet moment of respect. But the third band on her list, that one wasn't about sound or style, it was personal, and it hurt more than any of the others. The band that stole her friend. When Chrissie Hynde was asked if there was ever a band she truly hated, not for their music, not for their fame, but for something deeper, she took a long pause. Then she said softly, "Yes, the Police." At first it didn't make sense. The Police were talented. They had sharp lyrics, reggae-influenced rhythms, and Sting's unmistakable voice. Most people loved them, so why did Chrissie feel so bitter? "It wasn't their sound," she explained. "It was what they took from me." In the early 1980s, Chrissie was close with a songwriter named David. They weren't lovers, but they were something even more rare, true musical partners. They wrote songs together, stayed up late talking about lyrics, and planned a tour where he would open for the Pretenders. But just before the tour, David disappeared. "I didn't hear from him for weeks," Chrissie said. "Then I saw him on TV playing backup on stage with the Police. Sting had hired him, no goodbye, no explanation. It broke my heart, he was my friend, and they took him." For years after that, Chrissie couldn't listen to Roxanne or Every Breath You Take without feeling sick. It reminded her of betrayal, of loss. She didn't blame David entirely, but the wound never fully healed. Then many years later, Chrissie saw Sting perform at a small benefit concert in New York. He was alone on stage with just a bass guitar and a single spotlight. He looked tired, softer, wiser, and when he played Fragile, something inside her changed. "I saw the human being, not the superstar." She realized she'd been carrying pain for too long. "I don't hate them anymore," she said. "I hated the feeling they left me with, but not the music." Letting go wasn't easy, but what came next was even harder, because the fourth band Chrissie once hated almost made her quit music altogether. The band that made her want to quit. In the world of 1980s rock, everything was changing. The guitars were louder, the videos were flashier, bands weren't just making music, they were building brands, and no band did that better than Duran Duran. I couldn't stand them, Chrissie Hynde said flatly. They looked like models trying to be musicians. She saw them as everything punk music had tried to destroy. Fancy suits, slick hair, yacht music videos, to her it was all image, no soul. I felt like we were out there bleeding on stage every night and these guys were dancing around in pastel shirts on MTV. It wasn't just dislike, it was jealousy, frustration, exhaustion. There was one night Chrissie never forgot. She had just finished a rough set in a smoky club. Her throat was sore. Her hands were shaking. She got back to her hotel and turned on the TV. There they were, Duran Duran sailing on a yacht, laughing, living the dream. That was the moment, she said. I almost packed my bags and quit, but then came an unexpected moment of truth. In 2012, Chrissie was invited to a benefit show in London. Duran Duran was also on the bill. She almost didn't go, but something told her to stay. She watched their set from the side of the stage, arms folded. She waited to feel annoyed. But when they played Ordinary World, something shifted. I got chills, she said. That song, it was raw, real, and Simon Le Bon sang like he meant every word. After the show, Simon walked over and smiled. Chrissie, I just wanted to say Brass in Pocket changed my life. She didn't know what to say. In that moment, the wall between them disappeared. I realized you can't judge a band by their suits or their videos. Music is deeper than that. And then came the final band, a band so big, so loved that Chrissie had kept her feelings a secret for decades. But now she was ready to speak. The band everyone loved, but she couldn't stand. If you asked people to name the greatest band of all time, many would say the Beatles. But for most of her early life, Chrissie Hynde didn't agree. In fact, she couldn't stand them. I thought they were overrated, she said honestly. People worshiped them like gods, and I just didn't feel it. Growing up in Akron, Ohio, the Beatles were on every radio station. Their posters were on every teenager's wall. They were everywhere. It was impossible to escape. When everyone loves something that much, sometimes you just want to run the other way, Chrissie said. She didn't relate to their clean image. She preferred darker, stranger bands like the Kinks or Velvet Underground, but deep down there was another reason. I felt like I had missed the party, she said. By the time I came into music, they were already legends, untouchable. It made me feel small. For years, she avoided their songs. When someone played Let It Be, she walked out of the room. When someone mentioned Hey Jude, she rolled her eyes, but that all changed one quiet night. She was at Abbey Road Studios, recording a track for a Pretenders album. She stood in the same room where the Beatles had recorded some of their greatest hits. She looked down at the floor, then up at the old red recording light. I felt them, she said, like ghosts, but not scary, just honest. After that, she started listening again, but this time really listening. And when she heard George Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, she cried. I finally got it, she said. It wasn't hype, it was heartbreak, it was beauty. Today, Chrissie Hynde is 72, still touring, still writing, still real, and her message is simple. The bands I hated, I didn't really hate them. I hated what they reminded me of: jealousy, fear, loss, change, but I let go, and now I love them. Because sometimes the bands you once couldn't stand are the ones you remember most, forever.